All right, on this video, I'm going to show you how to do radical equations when you have a variable and a number on the opposite side of the equal sign. So we need to square both sides. But the trick is when we square this side, we have to put parentheses around it and square the whole thing. So remember, that means v minus 1 times v minus 1. This side gets rid of the square root, so you have 9v minus 27. When you multiply this out, you get v squared minus 1v minus another 1v, so minus 2v plus 1. And so that's going to be equal to 9v minus 27. That is going to result in a quadratic. You have a v squared and some v's. So you need to move everything over to the side where you have the v squared and set it equal to 0. So minus 9v minus 9v, that'll cancel, and plus 27 and plus 27, that'll cancel. That will leave you with v squared minus 11v plus 28 equals 0. At this point, I would factor. The two numbers that multiply to 28 and add to negative 11 are negative 7 and negative 4. So, if you made your x, you'd put a 28 up there, a negative 11, a negative 7, and a negative 4. If you want to use a quadratic formula, you can completely do that. You would have 11 plus or minus radical 11 squared minus 4 times 1 times 28 all over 2 times 1, and you would get the same answers. This will give you v equals 7 and v equals 4. Now, just like on level 3, we have to check these numbers and see if they work. I don't know if you noticed yesterday, the shortcut was the negatives didn't work. So it's not just the negative numbers. You have to look and see if this side is going to be positive or negative. This side of the equation is positive because it's a positive square root. It doesn't say the negative square root. So the right side of the equation is positive. So the whole left side of the equation has to be positive. So if you plug in 7 for v, you get 7 minus 1, which is 6. 6 is positive, so the 7 works. You plug 4 in, you get 4 minus 1, which is 3. 3 is positive, so the 4 works. It's not that the 7 and the 4 are positive. It's that when you plug them into the left side of the equation, or the side without the square root, over here on this one it'll be the right side of the equation. If you plug it into the side that doesn't have the square root, you get a positive number. 4 minus 1 gives you 3. Okay, so let's look at number 2. So we're going to square both sides. So that's going to give us 3x minus 20 is equal to, now I'm going to do square double square. There's a formula that says if you have a plus b squared, that's a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So the first thing squared is x squared. Times them together and double it. So minus 16x and then plus 8 squared, which is 64. Move everything over to the side where you have the x squared. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. That's going to give me a negative 19x. I need to add 20 to both sides. That's going to give me plus 84. Again, you can use the quadratic formula here. If you want to, go ahead and pause the video and get that. I'm going to factor because I know that 7 and 12 multiply to 84. So a negative 7 and a negative 12 adds to 19. So this gives me x equals 7. This gives me x equals 12. So at first glance, it looks like they should both work because they're both positive. But it doesn't matter that these are positive. What matters is that the thing that the square root equals has to be positive, this x minus 8. If I plug in 7 for x, 7 minus 8 is negative 1. That's a negative. So I'd end up getting the 1 equals negative 1. Like, it has to be positive. So I get a negative, so I don't count my 7. If I plug in 12, 12 minus 8 gives me 4. That's a positive number. That works. So I keep the 12. I throw out the 7. Okay, So if you feel like you know what you're doing, you can pause the video and try this one. I'm going to go ahead and work it. So you square both sides. So you have v squared minus 20v plus 100. That gives you 3v minus 30. And remember, if you can't do this by using square double square, by doing the shortcut, then you need to go back and write it out like this, okay? V minus 10 would mean, v minus 10 squared would mean v minus 10 times v minus 10 and work it out the long way. Then subtract 3v from both sides because you want to move everything over to where you have the v squared. Add 30 to both sides. All that's going to be 0. So you have v squared minus 23v plus 130 equals 0. You can use quadratic formula. I'm going to do 10 and 3 or 10 and 13. So that gives me v equals 10 and v equals 13. So then plug them back up in and see if they work. 10 minus 10 gives you 0, and 0 is okay. You just can't have a negative number. 0 will equal the square root of 0, so that'll be fine. So 10 works. 13 minus 10 is equal to 3, which is positive, so 13 works. Okay, number 4. If you square both sides, you're going to get 10p plus 101 is equal to p squared plus 18p plus 81. Move everything over to the side where you have the letter squared. So we're going to subtract 10p from both sides, and we're going to subtract 101 from both sides. That's all going to be 0 equals p squared plus 8p, and then 81 minus 108 is negative 27. So I need numbers that multiply to 27. Oh, this is wrong. I was wondering why this sounds weird. It wasn't working out right. I have a 101 here, and I subtracted 108 over there. You got to be careful and not make silly mistakes. So 81 minus 101 is negative 20. So now I need numbers that multiply to 20 and subtract to 8. So it's 10 and 2. Again, you can use the quadratic formula. So 10 minus 2 is 8. 10 times negative 2 is negative 20. This gives me a negative 10. This gives me 2. If I plug this up into this, negative 10 plus 9 is a negative 1, so I can't use negative 10. If I plug in 2 plus 9, I get 11. That's positive. Oops, sorry, you can't see that. If I plug in negative 10 plus 9 is negative 1, so that doesn't work. 2 plus 9 is 11. That's positive, so that works. Okay. So these would be good to try on your own. In class, that's what we'll do. I'll probably stop and give you some to practice on your own. So we're going to square both sides. So 13n plus 285 is equal to n squared plus 18n plus 81. Subtract 13n from both sides. Subtract 285 from both sides. So 0 equals n squared plus 5n. 5 minus 1 is 4, 0, 2, minus 204. So I'm going to check a couple of things, and I get 12 and 17. So n plus 17 and n minus 12. Again, you can use quadratic formula for this. This will give me a negative 17. This gives me 12. Because remember, you're setting this equal to 0 and solving. But if you're doing the quadratic formula, you don't have to worry about that anyway. Then plug this in. Negative 17 plus 9 is a negative 8. So you don't count the 17. And 12 plus 9 is 21. So that's positive. So you keep the 12. Square both sides. Gives you 3n minus 8. N squared minus 8n plus 16. Subtract 3n from both sides. and add 8 to both sides. 0 is equal to n squared minus 11n plus 24. So I'm going to make that an n minus 8 and an n minus 3. So n equals 8, or n equals 3. If I plug that up into this, I have n minus 4. 8 minus 4 is 4, so I keep the 8 because 4 is positive. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. That's a negative, so I don't keep the 3. So even though the 3 is positive, I got a negative number when I plugged it up into this side of the equation. So that's why I don't keep it. Okay, so hopefully that helped. We will continue this in class.